we're going to jump into this right now. I have been, the last 48 hours have been, like I said, a whirlwind. And I was preparing something on Friday. And while I was preparing it, and I was studying some of the history of this building, preparing for the next week, because we're supposed to be in this building next week for the first time, I got the text from Joe at 3 p.m. that we had no facility. And everything that I was preparing was actually centered around exactly what was going on. So let me just tell you this at the onset. Some of you are going to receive a major breakthrough today in your personal and your spiritual life. Some of you are going to get healed in your physical body. Some of you are going to go to a whole new level in your perspective in this season. And I believe God's going to strengthen us powerfully today. When this kind of thing happens, God's got a word for all of us in this room. So get ready. I believe this at the onset of what I'm about to do. I believe this, that we are in a season where things are being completed. We are in a season where things are being completed, that not only is a season ending, a new season is beginning. And I believe something very true about this season to be the fact that, for many of you, I believe this season that we're in right now and that's coming down the pike is going to be a major next level season for you. Like things that you were up against in the last season will be like under your feet in the next season. Really, things that were over your head, looming struggles will be non-issues in the next season. Where I was studying the number 7 and part of the week, and then especially on Friday, and just the 7's the number of completion. 7 numerically, there's, throughout Scripture, there's symbols, there's colors, there's numbers. They all mean something. They all represent something. There's symbolic nature in these things and objects, and the number 7 is a number of completion. It's the number right before everything becomes new. Everything becomes new. 8 is the number of newness and new beginnings, but you have to get to 7 to get to 8. You got to complete something to come into something. Are you with me? So I want to open it up, track along with me. Hopefully you can see the screen now. At 3 o'clock, you couldn't see that screen at all. So thank God that it's getting dark. But 1 Kings 17, let's go there. 1 Kings 17, verse 1 says this. Now Elijah, who was from Tishbe in Gilead, told King Ahab, as surely as the Lord, the God of Israel lives, the God I serve, there will be no dew, listen to this, or rain during the next few years until I give the word. So here's this guy, this prophet Elijah, had cahoots with the king Ahab at the time. He prophesies, he gives this word that's from God. God said it. Keep that in mind. God said it. Everyone say, God said it. God told Elijah hey, I want you to give this word to King Ahab. It's not going to rain for the next 3.5 years. It's not going to rain. There's going to be a drought. There's going to be a little bit of a famine. And little did Elijah know how that word that he said, that God said through him, was going to affect his life. But then we jump over one chapter later to chapter 18, okay? And a lot of stuff had already happened at this point. He'd been challenged with a lot of different things. He had to go through some major testing, a testing season. And one chapter later, about 3 years, a little over 3 years later, it says this in verse 1, 1 Kings chapter 18, verse 1. Later on, in the 3rd year of the drought, the Lord said to Elijah, go present yourself to King Ahab. Tell him that I will soon send rain. So here's this guy, God says to this guy, prophesy that it's going to end, it's going to be a drought. And then God says to him, hey, now prophesy, it's all going to come back. The rain's going to start coming. And that drought is going to end. It had been 3.5 years. Now, let's jump to our actual passage right now. You can write this down, or at least jot the reference down for the future. 1 Kings chapter 18, verse 41. Verse 41, then Elijah said to Ahab. Now, at this point, Elijah had just defeated some major opposition. So he prophesies this word. God said it. The drought's about to, end. And then all of a sudden, he goes through this season, or this moment of some major opposition and conflict. And God shows up. God battles the battle for him. He wins the battle. He wins the fight. He wins over the conflict. And now, in verse 41, he goes to Ahab, back to the king, says, now go, eat and drink, because a heavy rain is coming. It's the floods. Heavy floods, heavy rains are coming. It's going to be weird because, it's January 10th. It's not supposed to rain on January 10th, but there's rain coming. You know, it's not supposed to flood. If you know what happened to our recent venue at Carlton, there was a complete flood underground right around all the area where we keep some of our stuff, and in Seldom Hall in the hallways and the underground tunnels where we actually go, and we have like church and classrooms down there. Like, there was a complete flood. They showed it on the news where water coming down the staircase. There was a flood. It's a good sign. Everywhere we go, there's a flood. When we left Ogilvie, there was a flood. Now we go to Carlton, there's a flood. It's happened twice. Happens the third time at Lansdowne. Hey, we're either in trouble or God's in this. Let me tell you, I believe God's in it. So then it says here, verse 42, so King Ahab went to eat and drink. At the same time, Elijah climbed to the top of Mount Carmel, where he bent down to the ground with his head between his knees. Then Elijah said to his servant, go and look toward the sea. The servant went and looked. I see nothing, he said. Elijah told him to go and look again. Everyone say, look again. This happened 7 times. The number 7 happened for a completion of time, 7 times. The 7th time, the servant said, I see a small cloud the size of a human hand or a human fist coming from the sea. Elijah told the servant, go to Ahab and tell him to get his chariot ready and go home now. Otherwise, the rain will stop him. After a short time, the sky was covered with dark clouds. The wind began to blow, and soon heavy rain began to fall. Ahab got in his chariot and started back to Jezreel. The Lord gave power to Elijah, who tightened his clothes around him and ran ahead of King Ahab all the way to Jezreel. If you're taking notes, write this down. Look again. Look again. Our hashtag, our subtitle, our focus is if God said it. Look again, if God said it. I believe this 2016 is going to be a year where we're going to have to learn how to look again. When things that God has spoken to us seem to turn out a way that we didn't expect, God is saying this to you, look again. When you're facing a struggle or a situation or an issue that you used to face in the past this season, you're going to look at it, and the reason why it's going to go from here under your feet is because you're going to look again, and you're going to see what God wants to do through it. Sometimes we have this issue of judging the external only and judging what we see, but God's always saying, hey, look beyond the external, look beyond what you see, look again, because there's something else that you don't see that I'm actually doing. There's something that you don't get, that you don't understand, that I'm actually doing. God has a plan. Do you believe that for your life? The Bible says that He orders the steps of the righteous. So He's ordering our steps. If you're connected to God, you know God, you believe in God, hey, He's got the whole plan ahead. If you're on the journey, hey, guess what? God's also got a plan for you. God's also got a plan for you. I believe this, His plan plants us and His process prepares us. Every time that we try to do our own plan, usually it fails. But hey, when God's in it, it succeeds. When God's in it, it succeeds. And every time we take a step, if we're following His heart, following His leading, we're going to step into His plan. And His plan always plants us in every season, even when you're mobile and you feel like you have no geographical planting. You don't really have roots to go down geographically. You're planted in His purpose. And when you're planted in His purpose, guess what? You can embrace all of the process. You can embrace everything that comes your way because it prepares us to come into all that He's called us to come into. Look again is the word. You know, there are 2 realities, and write this down in your notes if you're taking notes. There are 2 realities that we're facing. It's the heavenly reality, and then it's the earthly reality. We have issues that we face, challenges that we meet, tests that come our way, and we're facing these tests all the time. We're facing this earthly situation all the time, but there is always something else going on that we don't see. There's a verse in Hebrews 11, verse 3, and you can put it up on the screen there. It says, by faith we understand that the entire universe was formed at God's command, at God's word. So God said it. God said everything that you see today. You know that? That everything that exists today in this universe came from a word that God said. God said it. God said it. Everything that you see came from something that you don't see. The manufacturer of everything that you see, put it this way, is someone that you may not see physically. Part of this faith journey is that there's a lot of invisible realities that go on, that are going on that you don't see in the midst of what you do see. So if the manufacturer is the unseen, And what you see, what the product that you see is what you live with. Man, in every journey of life and every struggle in life, the best question that you could ask yourself or tell yourself is, look again. Am I seeing right? Am I seeing right? It says this, that the universe was formed at God's command, that we now see what did not come from anything that can be seen. So, hey, if you want the answers, go back to the manufacturer, go back to the beginning and find out what's really going on. That's why it's so important that we connect to the Creator in our life, because He helps us discover and uncover everything that's really going on that you can't really see most of the time. Are you with me? Are you here? So I want to give you 4 things, today, 4 keys, things that we go through if God said it. Write these things down. Number 1, the stupid stretch. Everyone say stupid stretch. The stupid stretch. Say it again, the stupid stretch. Let's go to the beginning passage again. The beginning passage again here. 1 Kings 18, verse 41. 18, verse 41. Then Elijah said to Ahab, now go and eat and drink because a heavy rain is coming. It's going to come on January 10th. So King Ahab went to eat and drink. At the same time, Elijah climbed to the top of Mount Carmel, where he bent down to the ground with his head between his knees. Let me just show you what that looks like for all of you, okay? You getting a good look? Should I do it again? Okay. So, this is what I'm trying to show you, is that, and, obviously some translations will call that prayer. But he bent down, put his head between his knees, okay? There was a weird stretching going on. Actually, if you do a little study on the phrase and the words in that passage, it just means an awkward stretch, a weird stretch. And how many know that when God says something to you, gives you a promise, hey, you're going to be like the next CEO of this company and you're going to do this awesome thing. How many know that you go into a season of really weird stretching? You're like, oh, this is stupid. Like, I have to do this, really? If I'm going to be the CEO, I got to start in the bathrooms cleaning the toilets. Like, are you serious? Like, this is stupid, And you feel like you're being stretched in areas. But I am the CEO, but then maybe God's trying to train you in another area, and you got to almost start at the bottom again. And you're like, this is a stupid stretch. Like, but it's all part of God's plan. If God said it, then whatever you face in life, what God's saying to you is, look again. There's something that I'm preparing in you in this moment, but if you don't look again, you're only going to see yourself cleaning toilets. But when I look at you, I see you preparing yourself for what I really have for you. Are you hearing me this morning? Or this afternoon, or whatever we're doing. I mean, I don't know about you, but I feel this. Like, there are moments, and all of us, we all have these moments, like, when like, we feel called to something, and, I remember, like, telling my wife when we first got married, wanting a lot of kids, and like when you have no kids, you want a lot of kids because you just have no revelation of what it takes to take care of kids, right? You want a lot of kids. I want to have like 6 amazing kids, and they're all going to love God, and they're all going to, and we wanted 4, and then got to 1, 2, 3, and then we started to question. Now we're going on 4. It's awesome. But there are situations along, or experiences that we had along the way that I at times was like, man, like I knew God wanted us to have these kids. I believe that. They're a blessing. They're always a blessing. The moment you think anything is a burden in life, that becomes your experience. When you see anything that you do in life from a standard of it's a blessing and there's good in this, it becomes that becomes your experience. When you see something as a burden, it could be anything. Oh, I got to do this. You start seeing it as a burden, then it actually becomes a burden and it rests on you like a burden, even though it's not supposed to be a burden. You can dictate what you experience by how you perceive life. And so anyway, all to say, that was a rabbit trail, but all to say is, along the way, I had to go through some stupid stretching. Like, I don't know, if I actually believe this to be true, but I was kind of hoping that I wouldn't have to change diapers. No, it was a hope, like a glimmer of hope. Like, maybe I don't know how much conversation we had. I have friends, this is really bad. I have friends that have never changed a diaper, and they have kids in their life. I'm amazed by it. I'm amazed. I'm perplexed. I'm upset, but it's okay. It's okay. But there are things like this along this journey, and I was thinking of this. Like, you guys know this stretch called the upward dog? Does this not look like a stupid stretch? Come on. Someone want to do it with me? So I was gonna do the downward dog, but it's a little harder. But these kinds of stretches in life, although they're stupid, they feel stupid, they're actually really good for you. That's a really good stretch for your body. Shoulders, your back, your butt. I mean, it's a good stretch. But they're stupid. But in every area of life, when you're initiated into something and you're called to do something, you're going to go through what I would call these stupid stretching moments that you got to get through, that you got to do. Like, I think about, God calling us in this last season to come and go mobile after we had a building for years and offices, and then all of a sudden everything would just, change. It turned upside down. Costco wanted to build there, and so they the group, basically gave us our eviction notice, kicked us out, which is fine. We knew that was going to happen anyways. And then all of a sudden now we're mobile, no offices. All we got is a trailer. But know what we really have now that we didn't have before? True family. A stronger team. Stronger vision. A stronger motivation to see beyond inconvenience and sacrifice. So much good. Yeah, we transition, go to a new location. You lose a lot of traction, a lot of momentum. But hey, there's a whole new momentum coming. There's a whole new level of traction coming. And it's okay. And it may feel at times like, God, are you serious? Like, we got to go mobile. Like, now we don't have offices. Like, I know it's not a forever season, but right now it feels like a stupid stretch. But we know God is in it because God said it. So when we go through hard times and we're here 7.5 hours yesterday, and all the stuff that's going on and all the challenges that we're facing, what God says to us over and over again? Look again. There's something else that I'm trying to do in you and in your culture that I want to fix, that I want to heal, that I want to mend. Look again. But then we have to look past this stupid stretch, and then we have to go to the testing temptation, number 2. Write that down. The testing temptation. The testing temptation. It's a big one. Temptation tests us. It really does. There are temptations in our life that come as a result of our stupidity and our choices. If we're filling our life with stuff, then that stuff is going to grow and fester, and it's going to be a stronger temptation in our life. And there's temptations like, hey, why don't you just give up? It's getting too hard. It tests your character. It tests your energy. It tests your vision. It tests whether you believe God said it or not. It tests you. How many have one of those right now going on in their life? A testing temptation. I believe to some degree it's allowed to happen in your life to prove you strong, to show you strong, to show you not weak, but reliant on God. It's there to help you grow. Let's go to 1 Kings, back to our verse. 1 Kings 18, verse 43 says this: Then Elijah said to his servant, go and look toward the sea. The servant went and looked. I see nothing. He said, Elijah told him to go and look again. This happened 7 times. You see, this servant, imagine this: your mentor, your leader, your boss at work, your parents, anybody that you're working with, is telling you, let's do this. We're gonna build this. It's gonna be awesome, and it's gonna be amazing. We're gonna go here, and you're just seeing nothing. You're seeing no fruit. You're seeing no change. You're seeing no movement. You're getting frustrated. This servant went 7 times and saw nothing. He saw nothing. Elijah said, go again. Look again. Look again. We all go through seasons where we see nothing. You know what I'm talking about? We're being tested. We're not seeing the breakthrough that we want to see. We're not seeing the movement that we want to see. We're not seeing the change that we want to see. We're just not catching it. Maybe for you, it's your job situation or some sort of financial issue, or it's something to do with sales, or maybe your trainer at the gym is telling you, hey, stop eating this and start eating this, and you're seeing no fruit, no change in your body. Anybody ever had that experience before where you went on a diet or tried to go on a diet, and you just weren't seeing the results you wanted to see? Every one of us goes through seasons like that where we know we're supposed to do something, but now we're being tested and tempted to give up. The testing temptation really is to quit because we see nothing. But when we see nothing, you know what God says to you? Look again. If I've called you to it, I will lead you through it. So if you're in the situation, look again. There's a story in Mark 4 where the disciples were in the boat with Jesus, and there was a massive storm. a massive storm going on, and it was a big deal. And they felt like they were going to die. And Jesus, who said, let's cross over to the other side, remember he said that? Let's cross over to the other side, led the disciples into a crazy storm. And then here Jesus is, forget you guys, I'm taking a nap, and he goes to sleep, passes out in the boat, and this massive storm hits, and there's water going into the boat. And here's this guy, Jesus, in the bow of the boat sleeping. But what they didn't realize, they didn't hear the sound, because really the destination was saying, hello, from the other side, you're going to get here one day. You're going to arrive there one day. One moment. Don't give up in the middle. There's a testing temptation going on right now. You with me? There's a testing temptation to give up, to forget where you're going and focus on your problem, to magnify your issue, to forget that there's a plan for you. There's a plan in this situation. Jesus was modeling it perfectly. He was sleeping. What he was saying was, hey, remember I said it, let's cross over to the other side. The other side was saying, hello, from the other side. I'm waiting for you. And he's in the situation, and instead of looking at Jesus the way that they were supposed to, they looked at the waves and the storm, and they went into fear. They went into fear. They didn't look again. They could only see the external issue. They could only see the problem. They could only see and fear death and feel unbelief creep in. And they forgot that, hey, Jesus actually said, let's cross over to the other side. We're going to make it. We're going to make it. Jesus was modeling it. Hey, I don't want you to see the storm. I want you to see me. And if you see me, what am I doing right now? Sleeping in perfect peace. Passed out in the bow of the boat. Nothing's affecting me. Nothing's bothering me. Jesus was saying, look again. Don't look at that. Look again. And look at me, because I'm in perfect peace. So if I'm in perfect peace, you should be in perfect peace right now. All of a sudden, when you look again at your situation, you can then begin to apply what you really see God doing to your situation, and everything will change. Are you here this afternoon? This is really good. You know, we transitioned over a year and a half ago. In 2012, we had a transition in our local church. It was an awesome time. And I knew going into the transition, I knew that, like, going into where we were going, that there was going to be challenges. And God actually, to some degree, forewarned me about probably 75% of it. I knew ahead of time a lot of the things that were going to happen. I didn't really know how it was going to make me feel. I didn't know how it was going to affect me. I didn't know the challenges that my wife and I, my family would go through, that our teams would go through, that our staff would go through. But I did know, I did have a forewarning of much of what went on in the last 3.5 years. Keep that in mind. It's 3.5 years. And I feel that God is saying this word to you, to us as a house, to you as individuals in this room, that for much of you in this room, the drought is over. Where there has been a drought in your life, in a specific area over the last 3.5 years, there's a word over you saying the drought is over. And so get ready and look again in this next season at what he really wants to do in your life. The drought is over. Are you hearing this? James 5, verse 17 to 18 says this. Elijah, for instance, a human just like us. This is James painting a picture of what happened to Elijah. What happened to Elijah. And it says here, Elijah, for instance, human just like us, prayed hard that it wouldn't rain, and it didn't. Not a drop for how many years? 3.5 years. It didn't rain. Then he prayed that it would rain, and it did. He would pray that it would rain, and then it did. Did you hear that? He prophesied that it would stop raining, and then he prayed that it would rain, and it did. The showers came, and everything started growing again. Let me tell you this. I'm telling you this right now. Areas of your life that were on a major track of growth are about to regrow again. The drought that many of you have been living in for 3.5 years, everything's about to turn over for you in 2016, and there's growth happening again. I'm speaking over this house. I'm speaking over you right now. There's a new growth about to happen, a new momentum about to happen. There's a drought that is ending in your life. And so now when you approach your situation, look again. Because, hey, if God led you here, He'll lead you to the next spot. If God led you to it, He'll always lead you through it. I remember when, it was a couple of years ago now, I don't know how many years ago now it was, maybe 3 years ago, and we were invited to do these meetings in New York at the Adirondack Mountains to do these meetings for a leadership team. And all they wanted us to come in for was just to basically prophesy over everybody. And so it was a last-minute thing. We had 3 kids at that point, obviously, so it was like, I think it was like 5 p.m. at night. We decided, maybe 6 p.m., we decided we were going to go. Now, this is like 6.5 to 7 hours away where we were going specifically. That's how long it ended up taking us. And it was like 7 o'clock, and Michelle and I were really wrestling whether or not we should go. Then it was like 8 o'clock. We were still talking about whether or not we should go. Then we felt like, we need to go. We need to do this. We need to go. We have to go. We have to go. We have to go to this. Even though it makes no sense. You know, we're driving late at night, 3 kids. We're all going to be exhausted. And the next day we're speaking. It doesn't really make a lot of sense. And then we finally decided to go. We felt like God said to go. I think it was like 8:30, 9 o'clock, somewhere there. We could not find Victory, our second oldest, her birth certificate. And we didn't have a passport for her. She needed her birth certificate to get over the border. We couldn't find it anywhere. We looked, I don't know, for how many hours. We looked, we searched, you know, and eventually we got her health card. But we called Border Patrol and said, hey, we don't have the birth certificate. We don't have what we need. We don't have a passport for one of our daughters. Can we use a health card? They're like, absolutely not. You can't do that. So we were like, okay. And so we really felt we were supposed to go. And so we ended up, now it was like 9:30. And I was like, hey, seriously, this is getting way too late. We haven't even left yet. And now we're questioning whether or not did God really say it or not. But we're looking at the situation. I just believe this, that God was internally speaking over us. Look again at what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to teach you something. Because some of our greatest breakthroughs in life came out of the most inconvenient moments in life, where it didn't make sense. Why would we drive with 3 kids, 7 hours, pretty much throughout the night, with no birth certificate and no guarantee we'll even get over the border? Like, does that sound foolish to you? But when God says it, and you go through a challenge, look again. And so we ended up getting into our van. We drove. It took us so long. And that might have been the night maybe that I had the Tim Hortons experience. But anyways, it took us so long. And we got there, I think, before the morning. Long story short, we showed them our health card, and they let us pass. The guy told me, you cannot use the health card. Went by faith. God said it. And it was it was a really powerful retreat. Remember that? It was awesome. I mean, major things happened at that retreat for that leadership team. And so these are the things that we go through, these temptations to quit and give up. Number 3, if we go from the stupid stretch, then we go through the testing temptation, then we go to seeing a small sign that something is happening. Write this down, the small sign, 1 Kings 18:44. The 7th time, the time of completion, the 7th time, before everything is about to change, the 7th time, the servant went back, and this time he said this, I see a small cloud the size of a human fist coming from the sea. Elijah told the servant, go to Ahab and tell him to get his chariot ready and go home now, otherwise the rain will stop him. It's very easy for us to judge things from the outside and not look again and miss what's on the inside. There are a lot of powerful, very powerful things in small packages. Do you believe that? What looks small and insignificant and the least likely to be the cloud that ends a 3.5-year drought becomes the very cloud that is a part of ending a 3.5-year drought. We can never be too sure, but these are the little signs along the way, and God often, we get through these stupid stretching moments, we get through these testing moments, we want to quit, then we start seeing these little signs, these little signs, something is happening, maybe this drought really is going to end, even though it's not a massive sign, it's a small cloud. What would you say if you saw a cloud the size of a man's fist? What would you say? That's going to end the 3.5-year drought? What would you say? But it's so easy to judge, and some of the most powerful things in life come in the smallest forms. Just look at your iPhone. So powerful, but so small. Can do so much, but so small. Can access so much more information than any device in history, in a sense, but yet so small, but yet so big and powerful. You with me? Don't judge what you see on the outside. Begin to look to what you see on the inside. You know, I referenced this illustration of you're called to be this big shot in some area, or this leader, or this speaker. You know, you're called to speak in front of thousands, and maybe you're going to be like the next Tony Robbins, and you feel like God's called you to be like the next Tony Robbins, and yet you can't get past speaking to 10 people. Or maybe you're in an organization and you're just sweeping the floors right now, but you never know. You never know, if you don't look again, what that is actually preparing you to do. So look again. Because if God calls you to it, He'll lead you through it. But sometimes how He leads you through it is not exactly what you want to be led through, the way that you want to be led through it. It looks different. It feels different. It sounds different. Don't rob yourself, write this down, don't rob yourself of the purpose in the process because you devalue or judge what it looks like on the outside. Don't rob yourself of the purpose in the process because you devalue or judge what it looks like on the outside. You know, we had to move here last minute, and because of floods at Carleton. It's funny because right before we moved out of our last location, I had this word, and my message, my subtitle was, "The Water Has Broken." And if you were at our last location, I was talking about the spiritual amniotic sac of kingdom culture was about to burst. And a week later, our hot water tank burst, and there was a little mini flood in the women's bathroom. So I'm thinking, I'm like, okay, this is weird. We're about to exit the building. There's a little bit of a flood. This was happening, a sign of water. I spoke this message about the water breaking. The water breaks, like the amniotic sac of our building just burst. You know, I'm a prophetic person, so I'm seeing all the connection points and the puzzle pieces, you know. And then, so that was before our transition. And then we were about to move here next week. And on Friday, the water main bursts at Carleton, and we have to come here. So I'm thinking, hey, there's no coincidences in the kingdom. You guys hearing this? Something's happening. And so here I am on Friday preparing this whole message about, I hear the sound of rain. It's about water, about rain, about the flood, about a drought being over. And I get a phone call from Joe saying, or a text from Joe saying, hey, there was a flood at Carleton. And now it's raining on January 10th. Do you see the significance? Are you here? Are you sure you're here? You guys, this is how God works. All of a sudden, heaven and the earth synchronize, and all of a sudden, things begin to happen in your life. God has a plan in heaven, it's spiritual, and then He initiates it to manifest in the natural, to give you a sign, a small sign of hope, so you can position yourself to not miss what He wants to do in your life. It's His process. The drought is over, and you know the cool thing about this, some of you may or may not know, is that almost 92 years ago, you put it on the screen, there was the biggest recorded religious gathering in Ottawa's history that started right here at the Horticultural Hall. It used to be called Horticultural Hall. This was an article from an American guy, F.F. Bosworth, okay, who launched a healing campaign. It says there, it's kind of blurry. Horticultural Hall, Lansdowne Park, continues until May 29th. And it's every night for seven weeks. Six nights a week, 7 weeks straight. So I'm thinking, okay, this whole thing about 7, completion, something's happening. I'm putting the pieces together. We're here. Now because we're here this weekend, we'll be here 7 times over the next 2 months. You guys, this is not a coincidence. So even if you're new, you're like, what's going on? Hey, everything that I'm saying to you is applying to your personal life. You watch what God's going to do in your life. Even if you don't believe in God, God's going to hijack you. God's going to hijack you. He's going to show up in your life. He's going to show up in a powerful way. So here we have, it says, bring the unsaved and the sick to the meetings. Now, the meetings started here, but they didn't end here. This momentum began to happen. This drought began to get over in Ottawa, 1924. Can you imagine Ottawa, Lansdowne, 1924? I don't know, like the Model T, I don't know, like stuff going on, I don't know, horses, like, you know. And all of a sudden then, the meetings got so big, they moved down to O'Connor and Argyle at the Civic, the old Civic Auditorium, which now is dismantled. The old Civic Auditorium that seats about 11,000 seated about 11,000 people. It moved there, and it was held there nightly. And guess what? 12,000 people came to receive Jesus into their life. 6,000 people came for healing. There were hundreds and hundreds of medically documented, notable miracles of disease and afflictions leaving people's bodies. The report is this: ambulances were bringing the sick from the hospitals to those meetings. What you don't even probably realize from all of this, because it took me a long time to piece it, because I knew about it, but there was lots of disjointed things, disconnected things. What you don't realize, a lot of the mainline churches, I won't even say the name because whatever, but a lot of the mainline churches that you know very well, some of the bigger ones, started as a result of the meetings that began right here. Some of the churches that you went to that don't even believe anymore that God is still real started from meetings that started right where you're sitting. Man, the book, page 74 in the book up on the slide. This is from a F.F. Bosworth book. Can you put it up? You have it there? The next slide. No, yes, there we go. This is a clip from the book explaining these meetings. It says here, in our last revival preceding the writing of this book conducted in Ottawa, Canada, during the 7 weeks of the meeting, 6,000 came for healing and about 12,000 for salvation. I doubt if there would have been more than 1,000 for salvation had it not been for the miracles of healing which displayed the compassion of the Lord. The city and the attendance. And now guess what? Now where is the largest facility gathering point in the city? Right there! Right there on Lansdowne. Guys, come on. Holy cow. The attendance ran as high as 8,000 in a single service, and this book is a reproduction of a photo of one of these audiences. Before leaving the cities, many hundreds of written testimonies were received from those healed or being healed from almost every kind of disease and affliction. Now go to the next slide. This is how the meetings ended. That started right in this building. Go to the next slide. That's how it looked. That's how it started here and ended like that at the Civic Auditorium. Thousands, that's not even in our Ottawa reference point now. Thousands gathering for a meeting like that. That's not even in our paradigm, is it? Like thousands, we're a very unchurched culture. It's just like God's not really important. The church is not really important, But let me just tell you, God is renewing something right now. I don't think it's any coincidence that my best friend, probably the only other church in this city that has done meetings in here, is my best friend that I grew up with. We've both done now meetings in this facility. God is up to something, you guys, in Ottawa. And you better get excited. You better look again at your whole situation, because God wants to show up and show out in your life and do something that's going to blow your mind. He really is. It's incredible. Absolutely incredible. I think about Genesis 26, verse 18. It says that there were wells that Isaac, Abraham's son, reopened. We're sitting on what I would call a spiritual well. A lot of you in your life, maybe you're like in this room, you're like, what's going on? You have a spiritual well that you're sitting on that you don't even know about. There might be a business person. There might be somebody in your family line, generations down the road, that did something spectacular, that did something incredible. And through a series of events in their life and struggle, it stopped up. It got almost like that well that was running full of living water and life got stopped up. You know who stopped it up? You know who stuffed these wells in Abraham's time? It was the Philistines. The giants that we talked about last week, the giants like Goliath that begin to fill these wells with earth and say, you know what, I don't want life to be here, so I'm going to stop it up. And so there's a well in this geographical area. Do you believe that? And over time, through division and discord and disunity and fighting, all of a sudden these giants, these religious spirits, these religious devils came in and started, okay, you know what, we're gonna cut the cord on this thing. There's going to be division. There's going to be splits. It's not going to ever come back again. We're gonna stuff this thing full of earth. But guess what? I believe this. The next generation, Abraham's son Isaac, was called to redig them. Because you know what? History is supposed to repeat itself. That's why it just takes one person to look at a picture from the 1920s and say, wow, I like the mustache that curls up. I like the big beard. I like the bald head and the modern gentleman look. I like it. And so I'm going to begin to do it. And I'm going to begin to initiate the redigging of a well that's been closed for years in style because I want to. And then all of a sudden a critical mass of people get it, and a whole repetition, a whole repeat happens in history again. All of a sudden, before you know, people are running around on horses around the city. Because they want the old. How many know what I'm talking about? It's like the old repeats itself again in a different form, in a different generation. But you guys, listen, all it takes is a few people to initiate the uncovering of something incredible that's here at the Horticultural Hall. That's it. Woo! Sorry, that's loud. Let's just go here again quickly. 1 Samuel 16, verse 7. Or 16 verse 6. We talked about David last week, David overcoming the Philistines, which were the ones that stopped up Abraham's wells that Isaac reopened and uncovered. Samuel, this prophet, was called to anoint the next king of Israel, David. He was a young boy on the hill hanging out with the poopy sheep. He had poo all over his body, probably worshiping Jesus, playing on his instrument, playing on his harp, kind of like Josh Bloomfield, all sweaty up there, a bunch of poo, everybody's poo on them, you know, and just hanging out, just kind of worshiping, getting ready. He didn't know he was getting ready to be the next king of Israel, the greatest king that would ever be noted or live for Israel in history. He'd be noted as that, and he was the second king. But God was through his Saul at the time, who was the current king. And so Samuel, the prophet, was spoken to by God and said, hey, I want to anoint a new king. I've rejected Saul. He's not doing too well. He's not leading the people where I want them to go. So I want to anoint a new king through you. So go find the next king. Go find the next king. And so it says this: when they arrived, Samuel took one look at Eliab and thought, surely this is the Lord's anointed. Now stop there for a second. Samuel knew to go to Jesse's house, which was the house of David. Jesse was David's father. David was the youngest of 8 children, 8 boys. And so Samuel knew to go there. There was a king in that family. Out of the 8, there was a king. And so Samuel came onto the scene and, came to Jesse, said, I want to anoint one of your sons. And so Jesse, the father, well, this is my firstborn. I mean, the firstborn gets all the inheritance. The firstborn gets everything. He's the man. I mean, he's the most refined. He's the most probably good looking. He's the strongest. Like, I've injected him with steroids. Like, he's got what he needs to fight battles. I mean, he's your king. He's your man. He looks like he's the perfect look. He's the perfect package. He's got all the education in the world. He's the perfect fit. And Samuel looks at him and says, surely this is the Lord's anointed. It makes sense. I'm looking. It makes sense. One look. He didn't look again. One look. It makes sense. I mean, you fit the mold. And then this is what the Lord says to Samuel: don't judge by his appearance or height, for I have rejected him. The Lord doesn't see things the way that you see them. People judge by outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. Did you hear that? It's unfortunate. I mean, and you can live your life saying, well, you know what? God doesn't judge me. God, people judge me the way that I used to have long dreadlocks. Like long dreadlocks. And I still do what I do today. And I used to have people come in the meetings all the time saying, oh, you must have issues, you must be not, like, you don't love Jesus, like, listen, bro, like, Jesus had probably dreadlocks too. There was times when he didn't wash his hair either. No, I'm just joking. But anyways, so he's judging. He's judging. People judge by the outward appearance. But the Lord looks at the heart, verse 8. Then Jesse told his son Abinadab to step forward and walk in front of Samuel. But Samuel said, this is not the one the Lord has chosen either. Verse 9, next Jesse summoned Shimea. But Samuel said, neither is this the one the Lord has chosen. All 3 times, God's like, look again. I told you to anoint. There's going to be somebody, but look again. Don't look at the outside. Don't judge the small cloud and forget that something powerful could be inside that small cloud. Look again. Don't look at your struggle and say it's over. Don't look at the drought and say it's never going to rain again. Don't look at the situation on the weather and say it's always going to be minus 30 in January in Ottawa. Look again, because right now it's plus 4 on January 10th. I'm excited about that. So look again, verse 9, next Jesse summoned Shimea. He said, look again, verse 10, in the same way, all 7, was the number 7 again, all 7 of Jesse's sons were presented to Samuel. There was a completeness. He went through 7. Look again, look again, look again. Kind of like Elijah, 7 times. Go back there again. Look again. There's going to be a small sign. Look again, because you got to get to 7 to get to 8, and 8 is all about new beginnings. Look again, look again. Then Samuel asked, are these all the sons you have? Went through all 7. Now you could have, think about it. Samuel could have been like, hey, there's only 7. God told me one of your sons, something's wrong here. If God said it, look again. So he asks Jesse and says, are these all your sons? And then Jesse says, well, there's still the most unlikely of all of them. He's not here right now. I didn't think, I this was judging on the outside. Like he loves to play his instrument, his harp. He's a nice boy. He's a teenager. Doesn't have the same kind of training. Doesn't look the same way. And he's hanging out with all the poopy sheep, getting sweaty with them. Is that what you're saying? You want him? And then Samuel said, send for him at once. We will not sit down and eat until he arrives. Verse 12. So Jesse sent for him. He was dark and handsome with beautiful eyes. And the Lord said, this is the one, anoint him. So as David stood there, listen to this, as David stood there among his brothers, imagine the least likely, the small cloud of all the big clouds comes in, and he's got the most rain inside of him, the most power to fix a drought, a spiritual drought. He's got the most giftedness, the most readiness, even though on the outside it doesn't seem that way. He's the one that's ready, and he's standing as the small cloud with all these big clouds, and Samuel says, you're it, you're the man. I'm going to use you, little old horticultural hall you. I'm going to use you to start something that's going to change the earth. I'm going to use you, little old you. I'm going to use you. And it says this, and the Spirit of the Lord, after he anointed him, came powerfully upon David from that day on. Did you hear that? That's when power comes. You start seeing, you start noticing, you start recognizing the sign, looking beyond the external into the internal, and recognizing that, hey, it's not about the outside, it's about the inside. When you begin to think like that, look like that, and look again at your situation, all of a sudden, you're going to position yourself for great, powerful breakthrough in your life. So look again at your challenges and say, hey, there's something powerful God wants to do in me and through me so I can fulfill my purpose. So if God said it, we go from the stupid stretch, the testing temptation, to seeing a small sign that something is happening, to powerful provision for the next phase of the journey. Number 4, my last point, and then we're done. The powerful provision. Write this down. The powerful provision. We see this here in 1 Kings 18, 45, 46. After a short time, the sky was covered with dark clouds. The wind began to blow, and soon a heavy rain began to fall on January 10th. Ahab got in his chariot and started back to Jezreel. The Lord gave his power to Elijah. All of a sudden now he has the provision he needs to accompany the word that was spoken to him. Are you seeing this? God said it. God said it to him. Now he has what he needs to position himself, the provision he needs to go along on this journey. Do you know what happened to him here? He ended up running 25 miles on foot, supernaturally ahead of a chariot. He was the first known Superman before Marvel ever existed. He ran supernaturally. It says in some translations, he girded up his loins, whatever that means. He girded up his loins. He, like, David, he put on his underwear. And he, went out, like, because all superheroes wear underwear, like tight underwear, right? So he girded up his loins, secured everything, and ran. He ran 25 miles ahead of this chariot because God will always provide for you. He'll always give you the provision for the vision. But you got to get through the hard seasons and moments of wanting to give up and look again when you have a hard time seeing what really is going on. Some of us are like, man, like, I don't know if I can do this whole mobile thing. I think that way all the time. I'm not gonna lie. Like, these fleeting thoughts of like, this is crazy, and whew. But man, if I forget why we're doing it, if we forget why we do this, when we hear these testimonies of people being healed and set free and addictions breaking off people's lives and people finding like a place and finding God and encountering God for the first time, it's all worth it. We can't forget our why. Our what will always be changing. Our strategies, our methods will always be changing, but our why at the core of who we are always remains, and it's sometimes easily forgotten. And God doesn't want us to forget why we started what we started in the first place, because if God said it, you'll get through it. If He led you to it, He'll lead you through it. So when you're struggling with something, look again and try to see the bigger picture. Don't see why you can't do something. See that you get to do something, and there's a solution for you. David and Elijah had the power given to them that they needed for the journey. They had what they needed. Elijah had this power come on him that changed everything. I want you to stand up with me. Just close your eyes. I want to pray something over you guys right now. Jesus is kind of like Elijah in a sense. He went through some really hellish moments, tempted just like us. A man just like us in many ways. He was fully human, fully God, went through a lot of stuff so that he could connect with humanity. That's why. He went through stuff so he could connect with you. He's the reference point for overcoming for you. He's your starting point. He's your cornerstone. He's the foundation. He's what you start on. And Elijah's kind of like Jesus in that Elijah went through a tough time. Elijah had words over his life that he said and things that he initiated that affected his life. Jesus had words over his life, like the Son of God. He was the Son of God. He had to go through challenges and tests and temptations. Now, he didn't quit. There was a time when he wanted to quit. There was times when he wanted to give up, when he thought of giving up, but he didn't because he knew what he had to do. But Jesus gave everything so that powerful provision could be given to you. Jesus is our powerful provision. He's the one that sets you up for success in the end.